PWCC is a great way to sell your sports cards. If you're looking for a way to support the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel, consider using the promo code Cajun, all caps, CAJUN, when you're selling your cards on the PWCC marketplace. Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana. And today's video is, I was trying to think of a great title and I haven't done the thumbnail yet and I haven't done the title yet because I always record the video first, then I do it. But I think it's going to be called The Shocking Disappearance of the Blocked Shot in the NBA. That's what today's video is about. It's about how blocks per game have sort of dissipated over the most recent years. Specifically, that kind of seems to have accelerated, but especially over the last few decades. And it's one of those deals where, baseball is a statistics game, right? And, stolen bases used to be relevant. Then stolen bases were not relevant for about 2 years because the analytics said, just hit 3-run home runs, right? The Earl Weaver style of playing baseball for those of you out there who are baseball fans. And so it wasn't worth the risk of stealing second base and getting caught stealing when the likelihood of you getting driven in by an extra base hit or a home run was significantly higher because guys were on steroids, guys have gotten bigger, stronger, the ball's traveling further, whatever your theory is about the bats being different, the balls being different, the strike zone being shortened, the mound height. You get the point. Rules regarding the game and just the way the game was played dictated that it did not make sense to try to steal bases. And for that reason, stolen bases in Major League Baseball all but disappeared. Well, we sort of started to see that in blocks, and it's because of the new pace and space way that we play. So today's video is going to be, I don't want to call it a deep dive because I could have gone a hellacious lot deeper, but I just kind of want to talk you through some things regarding the career blocks leader, the career blocks per game leader, the single season blocks leader, the single season blocks per game leader, and then just kind of come to a conclusion at the end about where we were, where we've been, where we could be going, and what needs to change for blocks to follow in the footsteps of almost like stolen bases and once again become relevant. And so let me just start by switching you guys over. And again, this is one of those deals where you guys know how I do things. I could have flowered this up and made it a big fancy video and gotten tens of thousands of views. Not that anybody cares about block shots, but it's a pretty interesting dive into an NBA statistic that was, one of the 5 biggest statistics: points, rebounds, blocks, steals, and assists. And of course now, three-pointers have kind of supplanted blocks and steals in that. But I'm not going to flower this up. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint. I don't have a bunch of bells and whistles, but you're going to have to just rely on the content. So, and also, by the way, it's another good time to remind you, homage.com is a sponsor of my channel. If you guys are interested in getting one of these NBA Jam t-shirts or a bevy of other types of blends between sports and pop culture, go into my YouTube description. Please do me a favor and let those guys know that my big mouth actually matters and does something. Hit the homage.com affiliate link that's in this very video description and buy a shirt. A little chunk of that comes back to support the Cajun Cardboard YouTube channel, and it just reiterates to those guys at Homage that they need to keep sending me some new fresh gear to wear on the channel and to share with you guys. Homage, HOMAGE.com. But don't just go into the website, go into the Cajun Cardboard affiliate link in the YouTube description. All right, let's get going. Here's what we've got. So let's start just by pulling up the league leaders this year after about 30, 35 games in the NBA. And you can see, as I predicted before he ever played one NBA game, Victor Wembanyama is leading the league in blocks, and I think his number is actually going to increase. He's blocking 3.2 shots per game. Brook Lopez is actually having a great season, even by his blocks standards historically through his career, which we'll look at, and he's blocking 3 shots per game. So 2 guys in the entire NBA are blocking 3 shots per game. And then we've got, your usual suspects. Walker Kessler, who came on the scene as a monster shot blocker as a rookie. Anthony Davis. Chet Holmgren. I predicted Wembanyama and Holmgren would be 1 and 2 in blocks per game this year. Right now, Chet's 5th. So, Chet, you got to pick it up to make me look smart. Nick Claxton, Miles Turner, Daniel Gafford, and then I guess what most people would consider the best defensive player of his generation, assuming Dwight Howard was the prior generation. If you say Dwight Howard was not in the same generation, then that means the best defensive center, it was handed off from Dwight Howard to Rudy Gobert. I'm not sure anybody could argue that. Maybe there's somebody I'm forgetting about, but those are the two guys, right? And so Rudy Gobert, by many people's standards, is the best defensive center and the best shot blocker of his era as far as true centers go. And then Joel Embiid, Porzingis, Jaren Jackson. And then you get down to the sort of obscure ones, which is Goga Batadze and Clint Capella. And again, keep in mind, only 10 people in the entire NBA are blocking 2 shots a game. That's like 150 shots a year. So only 10 people, 10 players in the entire NBA are blocking 2.0 or more shots per game. All right, so let me do this. I've got to put my glasses on because I can't see anything. So I'm going to be glancing back and forth. I went ahead and printed my notes out so I could continue to screen share with you guys. I've got Basketball Reference pulled up. Basketball Reference is like the Bible if you're a nerd, a stat nerd for the NBA like me. So I've got this pulled up. I've got my notes down here, and it's the shocking disappearance of the block statistic. So let's start with just career blocks, just the dudes who have blocked the most shots in your career. I think they started keeping track of this measurement in 1972, so that's going to eliminate, at least 2, but probably more like 7 to 8 guys who would be very relevant to consider, especially given the way the game was played back then. We're going to talk about it in a second, but namely Wilt and Bill Russell. It sure would be nice if we could go back and see how many shots they blocked, because it might make this entire video, while my premise that the block shot has disappeared, this, if we had kept track of Wilt and Bill Russell's blocks per game, single season blocks per game, career blocks per game, it would dwarf the already, disparate comparison between blocks the way they used to be and blocks the way they are today. In other words, our starting point would be magnitudes higher as far as blocks and blocks per game than it is even now, because we're starting in 1972 and we're leaving out those two absolute Goliaths, those two mountains of men, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. But let's get cranking. So we all know Olajuwon's the league leader in blocks. If you didn't know that, either you're very, very young, you're not a nerd, or just shame on you. I mean, you should know that Dream is the all-time leader in blocks, and it ain't close. 3,830, as you can see up here on your screen. Right there, and then right behind him, 600 blocks behind him is Dikembe Mutombo, and then of course the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who played 850 billion basketball games and did block a lot of shots, by the way. And then I think a lot of people will be astonished that Artis Gilmore was 4th. Mark Eaton. That's a name I want you to remember. He is 5th, and it's important to remember the name Mark Eaton because we're going to talk about him a lot. The most active blocks is Brook Lopez, okay? So let's talk about active block leaders. Brook Lopez has 1,827. He is, wait for it, 27th on the list. So Brook Lopez has A, played forever, B, probably been one of the top 5 shot blockers, of his career, the years that his career spans, and he's played a shit ton of games. He is 27th at 1,827. To put it in perspective, and Brook Lopez got the benefit of an era where there block shots still did kind of exist, right? Only, in the past 7-8 years has this pace and space gone to where analytics have dictated that three-pointers, it's either layups or threes, open layups or threes, no contested shit at the rim unless you're, R.J. Barrett or Julius Randle. So Brook Lopez is 27th all time, and by most people's standards, he's one of the best shot blockers of his generation, and he's had a very long career. I don't know how much meat is left on the bone, how much tread is left on the tire for Brook Lopez. He might get to 2,000. He might get to 2,100, something like that. Ain't no way he's getting in the top 10. Let's just put it that way. To keep it in perspective, Dr. J blocked more shots than Brook Lopez, okay? And Dr. J was a 6'7" wing. and he blocked more shots than Brook Lopez. Don't get me wrong, Doc was probably the best wing shot blocker of all time, but a 6'7" guy has more career blocks than Brook Lopez at this point. So that's like exhibit A of holy crap. There's nobody blocking enough shots to be historically relevant in the career block totals list ever again. Just to keep it in perspective, Brook Lopez has 1,827 blocks. That is less than half of the dream. It is much less than half of the dream. Brook Lopez has blocked 1.9 per game in his career. Doc, who is again a wing / guard, blocked 1.7 in his career. So that should give you an idea of just how different those eras were. And that's kind of what this video is about, is how we're kind of gradually transitioning out of where you can even attain a block shot. It's gotten almost preposterous. Remember, keep in mind, 2 people in the entire NBA this season are blocking 3 per game, and one of them is Brook Lopez, and he's barely hanging on, and he may not finish over 3 a game. I do think Wembanyama will finish over 3 a game because, again, he's not of this earth. At 1.9 blocks per game, which is Brook Lopez's career average. And again, he's got the most of any active player. He's in 27th. Brook Lopez has the most. At 1.9 blocks per game, Brook Lopez would need to play 1,054 more games. That's 14 seasons of 75 games a season, which is being pretty healthy. 14 more seasons at 1.9. That would make Brook Lopez blocking 1.9 shots per game a 49-year-old. So Brook Lopez would need to play until age 49 and block 1.9 blocks per game, have no come off of his career average, 1.9 a game, 14 more years until he's age 49 to catch Olajuwon. Shit ain't happening. We know that. That's crazy. Not even LeBron can play until he's 49, I don't think. Anthony Davis is currently 34th. He will probably surpass Brook Lopez. You can see him right here. Here's Anthony Davis right here. Okay. He will probably pass Brook Lopez just because he's a lot younger and he's blocking shots only slightly below the rate of Brook Lopez. I think we go back to the league leaders. You know, Anthony Davis was somewhere up here. He's in 4th. He's blocking 2.7. Brook's blocking 3.0. And again, Anthony Davis has a lot more responsibility than Brook Lopez. But Rudy Gobert is considered the best modern defensive center shot blocker. He is probably towards the tail end of his career. I think most people would agree. I think he was a rookie in 2013 or something like that. So he's been playing 11 years. He's probably towards the tail end of his career, as we saw from the league leaders. He is blocking significantly less already. He's blocking 2.1 per game. So he's already started to drop off. He is 41st. The best defensive center of his generation. He is not even in the top 40 of career blocks. And again, he's got a little tread left on the tire, but I would say he's certainly on the downside. LeBron, by the way, is 88th, which is pretty freaking impressive. Again, he's played a bazillion games as well, but just something to note. Hakeem Olajuwon blocked 3.1 blocks per game. Lopez, the leading active player, is 1.9 per game. This is basically the equivalent. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and you're probably saying, what is one block shot per game? Is really not that big a deal. But if you kind of calculate it as a percentage, it would be like a player who averaged 30 points per game and the active player is only averaging 20 points per game. Do you know the difference between a 30-point per game scorer and a 20-point per game scorer? That's like Malik Monk and like Damian Lillard, right? That's what comparing Brook Lopez blocks per game to Olajuwon blocks per game is like. 3.1 to 1.9. That's a big 66% disparity. That is a big freaking deal. All right, let's move on to the next category, which is going to be, God, I hope I'm not putting people to sleep. I hope there's some NBA nerds, statistical gurus out there like me that just care about stuff like this. Single season total blocks. This will never, ever, 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 ever be in jeopardy, okay? And so we talk about some statistics. We talk about, John Stockton's, career assists, John Stockton's career steals. We talk about, Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points. We talk about Wilt Chamberlain averaging 50 points per game one season and 27 rebounds. These are the types of things, these mythical numbers that we know will never be eclipsed. Mark Eaton's single season block total it needs to be in that group of things. He blocked 456 shots in 1984. That was 5.6 blocks per game. Brook Lopez has blocked 2 shots per game 4 times in his career. Eaton blocked 2 shots per game 10 seasons in a row to start his career. And he blocked 3 shots or more 7 seasons in a row. Again, keep in perspective, 3 shots a game and 2 blocks per game. That is a huge disparity. And Brook Lopez has only blocked 2 per game 4 times in his career. Eaton has blocked 3 per game 7 times in his career. Eaton blocked 2,076 shots just in his first season. And if you recall, Brook Lopez has only blocked 1,872 in his entire career. So it is likely that Eaton blocked more shots in 6 seasons, his first 6 seasons, by the way, than Lopez will block in his entire career, and Anthony Davis for that matter, although Anthony Davis will kind of push closer to it. Eaton was a 26-year-old rookie, okay? You guys got to remember this, and I know we're talking about a guy who's pretty obscure, but in the world of block shots, he is the creme de la creme. Mark Eaton was a rookie as a 26-year-old. Okay, so he missed a good 4 or 5 seasons. If he was playing in today's era, maybe he missed 7, 8 seasons because he could have played as a 19-year-old. Who knows? But he came into the league like gangbusters, blocking everything. If you guys don't know who he is, go Google him. That's what he did. He blocked shots, he rebounded, he gave it to Stockton and Malone and let them do their thing. He was a 26-year-old rookie. If he had played 5 more years, he'd far and away, he would have urinated on Hakeem Olajuwon's record as he strode past him in career blocks. He's approximately 800 behind. That's basically 2 seasons worth for Mark Eaton to catch Olajuwon. Had he played 2 more seasons, he would have surpassed Olajuwon, and those would have been prime seasons, 23, 24, 25. He'd have been blocking the hell out of the ball. Serge Ibaka is actually the active player with the most blocks in a single season, and guess where he is? So here we are. Serge, this is blocks in a single season. You have got to go all the way down to Serge Ibaka at 75th and 76th at 240 blocks. Keep in mind, that's more than 200 less than Eaton blocked in his famous 1984 season. But that just should give you some idea. And again, Serge Ibaka did that in 2011, and 2012. That's not the same thing as 2023, right? We're in a just massively more pace and space. Blocks are significantly harder to come by. And Serge Ibaka, back in 2011, was 76th all time. If you got to go to the next active, you get Serge Ibaka again in 13. And then you get Rudy Gobert in 2016, which is sort of when, we're right at the inception of the 3-point insanity. Again, I apologize. I'm coughing. I promise you I'm not on drugs. I'm coming off the flu, and for whatever reason, when I do these videos and I speak, I just can't get the damn air. It's a dry cough. If somebody out there is a pharmacist or a doctor and knows something that I could take to make this shit go away, please let me know. Rudy Gobert blocked 214 shots in 2016. He's 118th. The best Rudy Gobert blocks in a season is 117th all time. Okay? All right, so let's keep moving. Single season blocks per game. All right, here we go. Now we're talking about blocks per game, right? Not total blocks in a season, and it's not surprising. It's Mark Eaton, and it's not surprising. It's 1984 when he blocked 456 shots. He blocked 5.56 shots that game. He blocked 3.5 shots per game for his career. Mark Eaton blocked 3.5 shots per game in his career. Anthony Davis and Miles Turner, this is career shot block leaders. Anthony Davis and Miles Turner are 15th and 16th on the list. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on single season, sorry. Serge Ibaka's active player with the highest blocks per game in a season. And by the way, did you know Serge Ibaka was active? I did not. But Serge Ibaka has the highest blocks per game in a season. He's 31st all time at at 3.56, but that was in 2011, 12 years ago. He was pre-pace and space. If Victor continues his pace that he's got after 30 games, Victor's played 30 games. Victor Wembanyama, I'm talking about. He's played 30 games. He's blocking 3 shots per game. That would rank him as the 3.2 shots a game. That would rank Victor Wembanyama as the 75th best ever single season blocks per game. Here's my question. How many shots a game would Victor Wembanyama have blocked in 1984 if Mark Eaton, who was about 7'4" also, he might have been 7'5". He was 7'4", 7'5". If Mark Eaton blocked 456 at 5.5 per game in 1984, how many would Victor Wembanyama have blocked? Comment below. Let me know. Do you think Victor Wembanyama would have blocked more or less than Mark Eaton did in 1984 in the greatest shot blocking season of all time? More importantly, we kind of buried the lead here. The elephant in the room is, how many shots did freaking Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain block? Well, I'm glad you asked, because they did not keep track of the block statistic in 1972. They did not, televise basketball games, or not all of them. They did, however, record some basketball games and have some stat sheets and things like that. And so I pulled up this little blurb here. Remember, we're talking about 5.56 blocks per game being absolutely, far and away, completely, never ever again untouchable. Well, let me just read to you this little excerpt that I pulled off of yardbarker.com. Russell and Chamberlain, and this came up because Russell passed away recently. Russell and Chamberlain, some experts did a deep dive into their 100 plus games for each of those players, where they actually did record the game and film the game so they could go back and kind of restat the game. Well, with a 100 plus game sample size, Bill Russell's data shows that he blocked 8.1 blocks per game. But he's the greatest defensive player of all time, isn't he? Well, maybe not. Not so fast. Bill Russell blocked 8.1 per game, but they calculated that Wilt Chamberlain blocked a whopping 8.8 blocks per game. And this is why I continue to say, and I know I'm a young buck by old head NBA standards, but this is why I go on to say, all these triple-double records that people are talking about with Jokic and LeBron and Westbrook and Oscar Robertson and averaging a triple, all of that is superfluous if we kept track of blocks for Wilt and Bill Russell. So, I mean, if Wilt averaged almost 9 blocks a game, that's at least 40 triple doubles a year, right? Let's say he had 5 seasons of 40 triple doubles. That's 200 triple doubles right there. Not to mention Wilt's assists, right? Because he led the league in assists one year. So you're talking about somebody who probably had 350 triple doubles, which would dwarf anybody historically. So that's something to keep in mind. So, and they make reference to Mark Eaton's 1984 season because he's got the highest career blocks per game of 3.5, but these guys were blocking over 8 shots a game in that 100 game sample size that we looked at. All right, so let me get back to my notes. Career blocks per game, Mark Eaton 3.5 is the highest ever. Anthony Davis and Miles Turner are 15th and 16th. There you go. But there's 2 things cutting against them. Can Anthony Davis and Miles Turner increase their blocks per game? Maybe one season here or there. I mean, Anthony Davis is blocking more than 2.3 per game right now, which is great. But the problem is there's 2 things that you haven't taken into account. Blocks are getting harder to get year over year. And number 2, as a player gets later into their career, they're certainly going to block less shots because that's a statistic that hinges on athleticism. It's not like free throw percentage or even perhaps three-pointers where you kind of become a specialist. Blocks per game are not going to go up as Anthony Davis and Miles Turner get older. So they're going to regress more closer to 2 than they are to 2.5. And so for that reason, again, utterly untouchable is Mark Eaton's 3.5 per season. It should be noted that there was one season where the great Manute Bol's dad, the great Manute Bol, blocked 3.34 shots per game. And then in the ABA, Artis Gilmore blocked 3.4 blocks per game, which was also incredibly impressive. So, league leaders in blocks per game. All right, league leaders in blocks per game. This is like just how many blocks per game did the guy who led the NBA have in that particular year. And if we scroll back, you'll see right now it's Victor Wembanyama. He's leading with 3.2. And impressively, Jaren Jackson's led the league in blocks 2 years in a row. One of those years he blocked 3 per game. Okay, that is no small feat. 3 per game is a lot. But here's what I want you to remember. I'm going to scroll back to when they started taking tabs on, and they calculated ABA and NBA. But let's just start in 1972. If we start in 1972, you can scroll until 2007. That is 35 consecutive seasons. For 35 consecutive seasons, the league leader in blocks was 3 blocks or more. 35 consecutive seasons. The league leader was 4 blocks or more, 13 times in those 35 seasons. 4 or more, 13 times. The league leader in blocks per game has only been over 5 times in the last 15 years. So 35 years in a row, it was over 3. And in the last 15 years, only 5 times has it been 3 blocks or more per game leading the league. And so that's just more evidence to substantiate the fact that, man, blocks are just getting harder and harder to come by. Like I mentioned, they're similar to stolen bases, where they just disappeared for a certain era because analytically it didn't make sense. And blocks are becoming the victim of the pace and space, the analytics, the 3-point shot, where analytics just dictate that 3-pointers on kickouts and or off the dribble or open layups are the only shots you should ever be taken, unless you're a Joel Embiid or unless you're a Jokic and you have such an absurd physical advantage over your opponent. Stolen bases came back because of a rule change. And this is kind of where I wanted to get some input from you guys, maybe in the comments, or maybe you can message me on Instagram. How do blocks come back? Is there any scenario where blocks come back? Because, everything that we've looked at today, all the data that I've looked at, basically the conclusion is this is a lost statistic. This is a lost statistic where we're never going to, it's never going to matter. No one's going to push Olajuwon. No one's going to push Mark Eaton. No one's going to push those records, in blocks. LeBron just eclipsed Kareem's record. Ain't nobody going to eclipse Mark Eaton's record. Nobody's going to finish in the top 10. Nobody's going to finish in the top 15. As far as blocks per game, nobody's going to finish in the top 50. It's just, it's almost irrelevant. What rule changes, the pitch clock, and the number of times you can throw over to first is what has brought back the stolen base, which I think is a good thing because it was a relevant statistic for a long time. And I've always been fascinated with the stolen base since Vince Coleman and Willie McGee and, Ricky Henderson, my favorite baseball player of all time, Ricky Henderson, were kind of roaming the diamond. What rule change would have to occur for blocks to become relevant again? Well, you got to figure it's a rule change that would result in people once again analytically concluding that attacking the basket despite being contested is the best manner to produce points. So one thing that could lead to that is this is hypothetically. I am in no way, shape, or form suggesting that it will or could possibly happen because it would change all of the other statistics. But if for whatever reason, 3 versus 2, threes are worth 50% more than a 2-point field goal. Obviously, even in Louisiana, you can do that math. What if threes were worth 4 and 2-pointers were worth 3? Well, now it's only worth 33% more. You just flip the analytics, and now maybe contested 2-pointers are as or more valuable than contested threes or open threes. And so, again, that's a preposterous hypothetical. What about what if there's another rule where you just move the 3-point line? What if you just move the 3-point line so far back, that's now, maybe it creates more space. I don't know. It's a great question. Let me know what you think. What would moving the 3-point line back do? And if you did move it back, the problem is you barely have enough room in the corner to shoot it already. So if you move the 3-point line back, and remember, the NBA 3-point line is not equidistant. The corner threes are shorter. It's a higher percentage, easier shot. That's why teams try to defend corner threes and give up they call it above the break threes. if we move the three-point line back, and if we moved it back in the corner, most notably, would we not have to widen the court? And if we widen the court, my God, did we just open up Pandora's box? Maybe there's a rule out there that I can't think of for block shots to come back as a relevant statistic, but I can't think of it offhand without changing a lot more to the game of basketball than would probably be intended by the rule change. So everything I just said about block shots, this whole video that I've talked about now for 30 minutes about a stat nobody cares about. So thank you if you're still watching. You must be a loyal subscriber and a consistent viewer of the channel if you're still listening to me ramble on about a statistic that apparently nobody cares about anymore because nobody can get them. But everything I just said as it pertains to block shots, flip the script. It's the exact opposite for three-pointers. I could do another video right after this. I could hit record, cut this one off, start a new one, and everything about blocks bad is everything about three-pointers good. All the records that used to pass each year, they're gonna be falling because as three-pointers go up, block shots come down and vice versa. They are directly, no, what's the word? They are indirectly correlative, meaning if one goes up, the other goes down. If one goes down, the other goes up. Most notably, the condition precedent would be the rise in three-pointers leading to decrease in the number of blocks. Olajuwon's career will never be touched. Mark Eaton's single season totals and single season blocks per game will never ever be touched. It's important to keep in mind that the great Mark Eaton, who I used to call Eating 'em Up when we used to play video games. I used to play Lakers versus Celtics on the computer, and then of course Lakers versus Bulls on the Sega Genesis. We used to use Eaton. Some people would use the Jazz. That wasn't my go-to team, but some people used them. We called him Eating 'em Up. But Mark Eaton is probably like a forgotten Sasquatch in the history of basketball. He was a big mountain of a man and wore a big beard, just a big thick-ass white dude that just waited in the paint, rebounded everything, and blocked the shit out of anybody that came in there, and he was nasty too. So when you got blocked by Mark Eaton, you were feeling it. He's sort of been forgotten because Olajuwon is the career leader because Eaton missed so many of those prime years because he was a 26-year-old rookie, which I probably should have researched. Why was he a 26-year-old rookie? Was he just kind of like scrambling around in lower level professional leagues, or did he go to college late? I don't know. But he was a monster. So Eaton's single season stuff will never be touched. Olajuwon's career totals will never be touched. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if there's anything else out there about the NBA you want me to talk about. I'm always looking for new ideas. This is something that just popped in my head, and I was like, you know what? It's kind of sad. I was looking at league leaders, and like year before last, Jaren Jackson led the league with like 2.2 blocks per game, and I was like, this is preposterous. This is getting ridiculous. We've got guys like Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren and Porzingis and Anthony Davis. These guys would have been blocking 3.5, 4.5. I mean, fucking Wembanyama probably would have pushed 5 blocks per game if he was playing in the late 80s or the early 90s. And it's just sad that we're not going to get to see them put up relevant statistics in this particular category. So thanks again for everybody watching. Hopefully you've checked out my YouTube description and you recognize there's 4 ways that you can support the channel. Go check that out if you haven't. Keep collecting, stay positive in the hobby, and peace.